I'm live. All right. Is anybody there? All right, here we go. Actually, I'm a little early. I forgot my water and I got to change the lighting. So I will be back. All right. Hello. How's that for great live streaming? I start the stream and get up and leave. First time doing this, so there's about to be some bumps in the road. Hello. Hey, Lane. What's up, man? Yeah, go Buccaneers. So this is going to be eventually ripped audio going to be put out on the Petercast podcast. But as of now, we had a show last night. We talked about how when I can't be at camp or Brett can't be at camp, we're going to sort of gather everything we can and just give a recap of what happened. And since we have a YouTube channel, that we don't use, we're using that format to go ahead and get out the Wren's training camp journals this year. So day 2 of Buccaneers training camp. I'll be honest with you, all the excitement I had yesterday is worn off. It's because they're not in pads. Pretty much everything that we kind of sort of wanted to know yesterday, we found out, as in, starting defensive line, what starting offensive line looks like. Is Fitzpatrick going to take majority of the first snaps? How's Jameis going to fit in there? Then we got the press conferences with Dirk Cutter and Jameis Winston, and of course they were asked over and over and over again about the situation. And to be honest, sort of that's kind of what happened today, kind of at the pressers. Besides Joe McCoy, but Derek's and Fitzpatrick's press conference were the same thing over and over again. But so what I'm going to do today, because they're not in pads yet, so you really can't tell offensive, defensive line how they're doing, who's standing out, who's flashing. You can't really tell who's standing out and who's flashing as far as the running backs go. I know everyone's excited about Rojo. Everyone's excited about Jensen. People want to see what Beninock does. Even Alex Kappa, people are talking about on the offensive line. And pretty much the entire defensive line, like all 8 of those guys. And then you can throw in Will Clark as number 9 because he appears to be the end on the second string, and Noah Spence is playing just nickel situations, defensive end. So you got, everyone wants to see how they're doing. But what I would like to start off with is, if you're going to follow, that's not the way to put it. If you want to see what's going on at training camp, I've made a list of people who to follow as far as video content. A lot of these won't be surprising to anyone. You probably follow a lot of these people, but I've sort of rated them as far as like, these are just the guys that you want to follow on Twitter as far as content that comes out of training camp, almost live content, videos. These are the guys, I shouldn't say all guys, because there's lots of women in there too. These are the people that, that I find tend to tweet about the things that I'm interested in. And if I'm interested in them, I think you'll be interested in them too. Yeah, Lane, Spence put on. Yeah, he's bulked up for sure. We'll see how that shoulder holds up, but he's getting, he's looking good. He looks good. We'll see, but he looks good. He definitely, he's doing everything he can to get that shoulder stronger. That's for sure. All right, so for my Twitter list on video content, I got sort of like a top 3 guys that tweet out, and these will be no surprise to anyone if you follow Twitter. One would be Greg Auman. He's probably the most consistent about tweeting out videos and also tweeting out things that we want to know. Right behind him would be Pewter Report. Now that is also run by, when the videos are out there, when practice is going on, they hand the reins over to Trevor Sikkema, Tampa Bay Trey. That's his Twitter account, at Tampa Bay Trey. I should go back to say at Greg Auman, GregAuman. He's a writer for the Times. And those 2 guys, as far as if you're looking for up to the minute what's going on in training camp, those are the 2 people to follow. But like I said, usually Trevor is running Pewter Report's Twitter account, so that's where you will find most of his stuff. Then the best of the rest. Well, our good friend, the godfather of podcasting, Buccaneers podcasting, What the Buck, had his first practice today. He periscoped a couple of things, tweeted out some stuff. He's fun to watch, and he'll give you something that you won't find anywhere else. He talks a lot about the drills and what this drill is trying to accomplish, and shows you who's doing what in the drills and who's excelling in that particular drill. He also talked about today is not only just look at the player, but in the 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s. This will particularly come to light coming Sunday when they get to put pads on. My first day, I get to be there in training camp. To see how they work to the guy next to them, the offensive line, the defensive line, the linebackers. And then after that, I would personally start putting like communication between the defense, because that has apparently been a sticking point for a few years now. Supposedly it got fixed after the bye week and Dirk Cutter's first season. I guess it was after the Atlanta game, and they went, and that defense went on, basically carried us that 5-game win streak. That ended up not working out. So I'm interested to see how the communication goes. Also under best of the rest would be Casey reporting. Now, we know her as Casey Phillips. She does the Miller Lite Buccaneers Insider pod with Scott Smith. She does some videos, not as quite as many as Greg Auman or Pewter Report or What the Buck, but she's up there. Jenna Lane from ESPN, at Jenna Lane ESPN. She does videos as well. And now there's a newcomer this year who I'm really enjoying, Carmen Vitale. She's a staff writer. She took over for John Kitna, I believe, who was a staff writer last year. Basically, it's like Scott Smith and then John Kitna. Now it's Scott Smith and Carmen Vitale under him. But John, the previous writer, John, he was not a fun Twitter follower. He rarely tweeted. He didn't, I don't know if he didn't want to or didn't get it or didn't care. I don't know what he did, but he wasn't active on Twitter. Now Carmen is active, and she's already done some good, some really fun pieces on Buccaneers.com. I guess her latest one was where she went out with Ryan Jensen, and they went and tried barbecue at 3 different places in Tampa, and they talked about that. But as far as practice and things, she's up there. She tweets out videos, pictures, and she's also someone that I feel that, when she doesn't tweet out a video or picture, what she does tweet is something that, that I feel like that I wanted to know. And then rounding out the best of the rest would be Joe Buck's fan. I noticed during OTAs and minicamp that they were, Joe Beckman was starting to, they used to never tweet out pictures and videos like during practice, but I saw that they were starting. So I wanted to give them a shout out because, all content is pretty much good content when it comes to us fans who are stuck on the outside looking in, and, you can get whatever you can from training camp. up there, on your phone. You can see what's going on. So Joe Bucks fan is now starting to do more videos and pictures and in practice live tweeting. Others you should follow on Twitter. 620 WDAE, that is the local radio station. If you're sports talk radio station, I'd say, if you're in the Tampa Bay area. But if you're not and you want to, catch them on the radio waves as well, you can just download the iHeartRadio app onto your cell phone, type in 620 DAE, and it'll live stream it to your phone. Now, if you're just a Bucks fan, it's not the best follow because they talk obviously a lot about the Rays and the Lightning. But that's why they're not in the best of the rest. They don't really tweet out a lot of videos as well, but they do tell you what's coming up on during their shows, and they'll have lots of segments like those. P Report has a deal with them, so Mark Cook, Scott Reynolds, Tampa Bay Trey will be on there, and they let you know hours ahead in what time slot you can expect them to be on. So they're fun. They're a good follow. So you can, listen to those guys give their thoughts as the sports talk jocks talk to them, ask them questions instead of just having those guys talk at us at Twitter or on their podcast. At NFL Stroud. Now if he would tweet out videos and pictures during practice, he'd be up there. But that's just not his style. It's not what he does. It's not his thing, but he's definitely a follow. He's by far it's not fair, but he's my favorite follow as far as Buccaneers. He's a newsman. He tweets the news and he doesn't give opinions. It's not his job. But if you check out his podcast at Sports Day Tampa Bay, that's when he does get to give his opinions. Once again, it's a Rays Bucks Lightning podcast. So if you're just a Bucks fan, he usually talks Buccaneers first. You can stop it, play it after he talks Bucks. You can stop it. But NFL Stroud's a good follow. Roy Cummings, that's R Cummings FHCN is his Twitter handle. Roy was a long time, reporter for the Tampa Tribune that now defunct and went under. And he jumped on to FanRag Sports, which now just, oddly enough, went defunct just a couple of weeks ago. But he also has his own website, FloridaFootballsInsiders.com. I think that he runs. So he's also not an in practice tweeter as far as pictures and videos and things, but he's there every single day. He asks questions, every single day. So, he's a good follow if you want to keep up on the Buck stuff. After that, we have a friend of the show, as most of these people have been, Tom Bassinger, Tom Metrics on Twitter, at Tom Metrics. He's the analytical guy that writes for the Times. I know he's out there some days, and he sort of takes more of the X's and O's or the analytical point of view in his articles and in his tweets and in his polls and things like that. Even though he thinks Peter is brown, I forgive him for that. And so he's another interesting follow. And then finally, the others ones is Scott S. Buck, Scott Smith. Been with the Buccaneers for 28 years, Northwestern graduate. He's editor-in-chief of Buccaneers.com. He is once again, he's not. He tweets, but no pictures, no video. But every time he does tweet from training camp, it's about something that I care about. So he's also a good follow that you should be. And now I'm going to give you a couple that you would think would be good Twitter follows, but they're just not, and it's odd. Not that you shouldn't follow them on Twitter, but if you're looking to these three people to give you live updates. What happened, what's gone on in training camp, these are not the people to follow because that's just not what they tweet about. The first one's going to be Mark Cook from Peter Report. Next one's Ira Coffin from Joe Bucks fan. And finally, everyone's favorite, Tom Jones. I don't necessarily disagree with what Tom Jones has to say. I just feel like, he's always taking the moral high ground he just is. I don't know if it's the safe player or if that's how he really feels or, I don't know. I don't dislike him. I just get a little tired of getting preached at every time he throws up a column. It seems to be sort of like his way or the highway in all his points of view. So that is a list of people that you should follow on Twitter. And if you're looking for in practice live tweets, like I said, you should do Peter Report and Greg Auman, followed by What the Buck, Carmen Vitale, Case Reporting, Jenna Lane, and then finally Joe Bucks fan. Those are the guys that are going to be live tweeting the most. And of course, besides us, when we're there, which I am at Rendax, REN_DAXT, and at the Petercast, just the way it sounds. All right. So we're going to get into training camp. Honestly, really not a lot went on. Most of the biggest tweet today, I think everyone tweeted out a 60-yard bomb from Fitzpatrick to Sean Jackson. We found out yesterday, like I said, who the third defensive back was, who the fourth defensive back was, who's going to play in nickel. Like, we sort of discovered all of that already. And since they're not in pads yet, there's nothing really to talk about. So all I can really give you is to break down the pressers. And since it was just off the heels of the Dirk Cutter and Jameis presser, we got Fitzpatrick and Gerald McCoy today. And as you could guess, it was sort of along the lines of an opening press conference for these guys. I'll start with Fitzpatrick's. Almost it felt like every question, like the first five, were about how are you going to draw on your experience to win these games? Hey, these are tough games. What are you going to do about it? Hey, are you glad that you're 11, 12, whatever he is, 15-year vet now in the NFL, having to face these gauntlets of games? Hey, when you came to the Buccaneers, did you ever think that you were going to be the season starter? It was the same thing over and over and over again, because it's the first time they get to talk to Patrick, and they're looking for quotes for their stories, and their stories are all going to be about fear not Buck fans, or Buck fans fear or get up in arms about these three games, or fear not about these three games because of experience, or get up in arms because he's a journeyman quarterback, and they're just looking for quotes for their story. The only thing that as fans that we can really bring out, I said we should talk about, is how much is the high praise he had for Chris Godwin. He went on for a minute or two about Chris Godwin and how he's going to have a 10-year career, and how impressive he was as a rookie, and he was a veteran presence as a rookie. And it goes in line with what we have heard about Chris Godwin from the beginning, starting all the way back from Hard Knocks, when Jason Light, talked about how he called him and said, all right, we got a place for you to stay. Chris Godwin was like, no, I already got a place. He's like, I'm all set. And that impressed, he's like, wow, he was talking to an assistant coach or something. He's like, wow, hey, wow, an adult. What do you know? And he's just sort of taken that and just ran with it. And he's steadily improving and trying to keep Chris Godwin off the field this year. I think it's going to be extremely difficult. But besides that, the Fitzpatrick interview was, just more of the same. How do you feel about these first three games? Someone did ask him about, if his opinion of Jameis had changed because of what had happened. And what's he going to say? Even if he can't stand to be in the same room with Jameis, he's professional, he's going to have to be. And he's not going to tell the press that, I can't stand to be in the same room with the guy. But I think his answer was genuine, which was basically, I judge people from when I first meet them. And from when I know Jameis, he's been a great, I think he called him an amazing guy, and it's nothing but high praise for Jameis. And, and I think he finished it off by saying, nothing that I have seen has changed my opinion of it. Okay. Thanks for those questions. But like I said, it's the first time they had Fitzpatrick's. They got stories to write. They got things to do. Quickly, I will go to, they had some on-field interviews that are on. These are all on the, you can see these and listen to these. I've also, the reason I started a little late tonight or today, I want to get these up a few hours earlier, maybe even up to, I should say 6 now. Yeah, a few hours earlier. I was messing around with trying to do intro music and be able to flash up pictures when I'm talking about certain people, or capturing audio from the press conferences and playing it while I put up a picture of Dirk Cutter and play a 30-second little answer, and I could talk about that. it's the first time I've YouTube Live. It's the first time I've even messed with my, my video editing. First time I've even messed with like video capture. And I was messing with it and I was figuring things up and I looked up and I was like, oh my God, it's like 5:30 and I still got to watch 2 more press conferences and get this thing out. So that's what I'll be doing after this. And I think they're going to be a little more entertaining, a little more fun to watch instead of just, me staring at you and droning on about what happened in training camp. But they had these on-field interviews with Cameron Brate and Adam Humphries, and they were trash. I mean, they just were. They were, basic questions. Wow, that's a real, talented tight end room. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. Wow, that's a real talented wide receiver room. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And that was pretty much it. That was, you've heard those answers from Hump and you've heard those answers from Brate. If you, follow press conference, you've heard them 100 times. It was a, not riveting line of questioning and definitely not riveting answers. So they were just, they're boring. But once again, they're on the app or Buccaneers.com if you want to see those. Like literally, they're like 2 minutes long. I guess we'll go ahead and I'll go to Dirk Cutter's presser now, and they'll finish up with Gerald McCoy. And once again, the Dirk Cutter was sort of like the Fitzpatrick presser. Instead of the reporters asking Fitzpatrick how he's going to draw on his experience, the questions were, "Hey, Dirk, are you glad that you have such a veteran quarterback that can draw on his experience for these first 3 games?" And after like the 3rd or 4th Fitzpatrick question, Dirk Cutter sort of smiled and laughed, and he's like, "We're gonna be fine with Fitzpatrick." He's like, "I don't know if everybody's worrying about it, but I'm not." And they really didn't get off the subject for that. But yesterday, as we all know, that whole press conference was saved for Jameis questions. And then since this was really the first press conference, if everything was wonderful in Buccaneer land. But it's not, and so we have Fitzpatrick there. So this was the Fitzpatrick press conference. As training camp rolls along, then we'll start to get the questions that we really care about, like the right guard position, the 3rd/4th cornerback position, Joaquiz Rogers versus Sean Wilson questions. Like we'll get into those, especially once we get into pads, which happens this Sunday. But just a few things from the Dirk Cutter presser, because like I said, it was just a lot of the same. How do you feel about Fitzpatrick starting for the closer games? That question, different ways. One thing I found slightly interesting was that Dirk Cutter talked about how he needs, since Jameis is such a vocal leader and he's gone the first 3 games, that he's looking for other leaders to be more vocal and stand up. He didn't name anyone, but I guess the way you could look at it in his mind, that there is now that Jameis sort of isn't leading the charge vocally, and because he's not going to be, you could think like, well, okay, he's not playing, but it's not like he's injured, because once they make the 53-man roster cut, Jameis Winston has to leave the building and can't come back till after the Pittsburgh game. When they report, I guess they'll report probably on Monday. No, sorry, Tuesday, because it's a Monday night game. So no, they'll probably get Tuesday off. But I'm sure James will be in the building anyway. Until after the Steelers game, James can't be in the building. He can't text anybody associated with the team or like the players, coaches, personnel. He can't text them, can't call them, can't be in the building. Like he has nothing. He can't talk to anybody. So it seems that with that comment that Dirk Cutter made, that we're looking for new vocal leaders, because for those 3 weeks, James is going to be there. That he's looking for someone to sort of step up and fill the void and sort of be, the engineer of the vocal train, or the guy that takes the reins of the chuck wagon and leads the charge vocally for this team. Let's see. Lane had another question. With all the defensive backs we picked up, why are we still going with Chris Conte? Well, one, Chris Conte's a safety. He's not a defensive. We picked up 2 corners and a safety, but the safety we drafted, Jordan Whitehead, we didn't draft till the 5th or 6th round. I think it's 5th. So he's a pretty late draft choice. It would be a luxury if he makes the team statistically, speaking, if he makes the team, throughout the NFL. No, I think Jordan Whitehead is going to make the team. But as of right now, it looks like it's going to be Justin Evans and Chris Conte. We'll see how that shakes out. The Bucks, they understand that Chris Conte is not a long-term fix. I don't think he's nearly as bad as everyone piles on him to be. He did have a rough start to his Buccaneer career. The Cardinals games, it was a close game. We were all excited about the team, and then all of a sudden 2 touchdown passes right over the back of his head, or I guess over the top of his head, right before the end of the first half. And now we're down like 17 points going into halftime when we were only down like 3, or maybe we might even be winning like 10-7. And then we were down 11 points. Chris Conte, after that, he's been pretty consistent. And if you watch a lot of the games, he's saved a lot of touchdowns with touchdown saving tackles, with his speed, be able to get from sideline to sideline. A running back or receiver is broken loose, and Chris Conte was the last man of the fence and either stopped him or chased him down and stopped him. So he's not as bad as everyone sort of remembers, because I know Chicago hates him for sort of a busted play that knocked him out of the playoffs or didn't get him to the playoffs. And he had a very rough start starting with the Buccaneers. But he's replaceable, that's for sure, because they keep just, signing him to these 1-year deals and then bringing him back. So I don't know if Jordan Whitehead's going to surpass Chris Conte in training camp. I would say no, sometime during the season. We'll see. The problem is Jordan Whitehead was hurt almost all of minicamp and OTA, so we really don't know where it is. Actually, Dirk Cutter mentioned that in his presser that Whitehead and Justin Watson, the receiver out of Penn, they were both hurt, and they're just a little behind right now. So he didn't really want to even comment on them because he didn't think it was fair, because they played so little. He's seen so little of them on tape. We picked up a safety from Arkansas. I think that's just a camp body. I think it was Josh Liddell. Yeah. So, but if a guy, and here's the thing, if a guy is after the draft and free agency, and then the draft happens, and then you're starting training camp, and you're picking up this Liddell from Arkansas, he's been out there a long time. So if he was a starting caliber safety, or other teams thought he was a starting caliber safety, he would have been snatched up a long time ago. Now, if you want to talk about Vaccaro from the Saints, who's still out there and a free agent, now that's something that I would discuss. The problem is that the Buccaneers really don't have any money left. I think we were like 9th or 11th in the NFL starting the free agency period, and they spent it all. So there's not a lot of money left out there to sign a veteran player. Now, you can always release somebody and make some moves and make it happen, but I think they're okay with where they are right now, unless someone shakes loose on another team. Or, who knows? Maybe they are in talks with Vaccaro behind the scenes, and they've given a price like, we're not going to pay anymore, and he's just waiting for a better price. Who knows? But sort of the easier one, Chris Conte's not as bad as you remember, or you think he is, and 2, since he's not getting these long-term deals, that the Bucs understand that they want to upgrade at that position. But if you make a list of things of what was wrong with the Buccaneers defense last year and make it a top 5, Chris Conte's not on that list. He might be 6, but he's not on that list. Something else Dirk Cutter said in his press conference, Demir Dotson's back. He had a meniscus tear in his knee. There was a little worry. It was a little worrisome if he was going to come back and make it back for training camp, but he is back. But he is sitting out for the 11-on-11 drills right now, just because Dirk Cutter doesn't sort of want this freak accident where, because people fall down if he steps on them. He's still working back into football shape because he did miss all of OTAs. He did miss all of mini camp with that meniscus tear while it was healing. So I thought that was just a little interesting for two things. One, Demir Dotson's back, so we got our starting right guard, or excuse me, right tackle back. But they're being careful with him right now. And finally, the last thing I thought Dirk Cutter said was a little bit interesting was when talking about the indoor facility, and he said space. He's like it's sort of space prohibited. Not the first time he said it, which I now when he finally said it. Well, this time when he said it, finally clicked in my head was like, well, when they built this indoor facility, why didn't they just build two fields? Like, why didn't they just make it a little bigger and put another field, underneath inside? Like, just make it a little wider, a little longer, however way you want to do it. So the space sort of isn't an issue. And he talked about how when they're in there, you can't get all the drills done because like the sleds and the defensive line, sleds and shiver boards and things, like they're a pain in the butt to move, all the way over inside. Now, me as a fan, I'm like, I don't care if somebody gets paid to move them. But the space thing, I understand, and because I went to the last day of OTAs and there was a lightning scare. We got to go inside and everyone got to watch practice inside, and it was great. It was nice and air conditioned. It was nice. But the team with those 90 guys, they were using every little bit of the field they could. Now, maybe they didn't go with a second field because after training camp and most of their practices are just going to be, 53 guys plus, the 10 for the practice squad and the extra guy we get for the international program. So 64 guys. That's not really that much less, So what? That's 26. I don't know. But I was thinking maybe that's not the reason why they didn't add another field, because most of the time they're not going to have 90 guys out there and trying to find space to run drills for. But it just sort of, popped something in my head when Dirk Cutter, once again talked about how the indoor facility was great and it's beautiful and I love it, but, it's kind of a challenge to do everything we want to do when we're confined just to the indoor facility because of space. And that brings us to Gerald McCoy. Gerald, he's a fun listen to sometimes. Sometimes I think he's a little sarcastic, doesn't have to be, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So one of the things he says that I found interesting. All right, hang on. Got another question here. Do you think Alex Cappa is capable of making an impact on the O-line this year? Well, that's an interesting question. I don't know if you saw the live podcast, or I should say live stream we did last night where Brett and I were together. But we actually get full credentialed press passes Sunday. No, I'm sorry, that's a lie. Tuesday and Wednesday of this coming up week. Brent's going to drive down from Jacksonville. We're going to be there. And that means, like, when you see this press conference with Dirk Cutter or Gerald McCoy or whoever, like, I'll be there and I'll have a press pass and I'll be able to ask questions. And that is one of the questions that I will definitely be asking Dirk Cutter, because everyone, I shouldn't say everyone, but most Buck fans, the ones that follow it as much as we do, that's the question about the offensive line. Like, everyone's fine with Dot. Everyone's fine with, Donovan Smith. Everyone's cool with Allie. Everyone's cool with Jensen. Beninock. And you drafted a guard too. So where that's going to play in, I don't really want to give away my question. But I think right now, if no one gets injured, I think Kappa is still the developmental player. Remember, he came from Division III. Well, Allie came from a small school, but yeah, Allie came from Division II. And that was small. So just imagine how small Division III school is. He was a beast in college, and it's talking about Kappa. It was a beast in college, and it was fun to watch tape. But he was going up against guys like me. I to say it was almost like a pickup football game with like ex-college athletes. The defensive tackles and defensive ends that Kappa is going to have to block in the NFL would destroy that entire league where he came from the Division League 3. So it's a huge jump up for him in competition. Now he's holding his own, because we saw at the Senior Bowl, You know, he had sort of a rough first day, and then he got his feet wet and proved that he belongs. And that's why he got drafted in the third round. The Bucks actually traded back up to go get him. But if there is not an injury, I think that the offensive line is going to be, just like I said, Donovan Smith, Marpet, Jensen, Beninock, and then Demir Dotson. And I think it's going to be very hard for Cap to overtake Beninock because, one, the leap in talent he has to overcome, which I think he can. But Beninock now has 2 years, starting his third year. He has 2 years in the system, 2 years of trust with Dirk Cutter and the coaches, and 2 years worth of experience. He's played NFL games, so to think that Cap is going to overtake that by week 1 in New Orleans, I think that's a really tall order to ask. But you never know. I think he's the next man up in the guard position as of right now. I don't know. That's a good question. I would think Dirk Cutter would probably lean towards Evan Smith a little more because of experience. I think Cap is a better guard overall, but he just has to sort of learn the position a little more, and when it gets to the point where he doesn't have to think about what he's doing, like when Ryan Fitzpatrick calls the play and he starts rolling his head, okay, that's the play. That means I got to block this guy, then block that guy. When it gets to the point where Ryan Fitzpatrick, calls the play and boom, he automatically knows, like almost second nature. When he learns the playbook that well, I think that's when Kappa will be able to slide in there, will become the second, I guess, next man up at guard. But as right now, I still think it's Evan Smith. But that's sort of that line of questioning. I'll take all what I just said and mash it up into a question that Dirk Cutter can answer. And I've been working on it, and that's definitely going to be something I'll be asking. So, tune into it, either watch the press conference, or the answer will be coming up on a later episode of Threads Training Camp Journals. So Gerald McCoy, here we go. He talked about how the defensive line room they had guys, because there's lots of experience in there. I think he said there's 4 new guys that all have been to Super Bowls. 3 of them have won Super Bowls. The new defensive line coach has been to 3 Super Bowls, like played in 3 Super Bowls himself. So he says it's really fun to have sort of that much experience and knowledge, and they're bouncing a lot of ideas off each other, and also things that he's never heard before, which I always find shocking when someone of McCoy's stature, as far as accolades and length of time he's been in the league, like this is his 9th year, that there's something that he hasn't heard before. I mean, I get that you're always trying to learn and absorb and always trying to get better. I get that. But there's not too many things you can do as a 3 tech. Like, there's so many moves, so many rips, curls, stunts. Like, there's only so many out there. And for him to hear that, some things he never thought of before, it saddens me a little bit, or maybe I just don't understand where he's coming from. But it saddens me, as that there's somebody out there as a defensive line coach getting paid, and they don't know it all, and they're not teaching it all, and and it's something that Joe McCoy hasn't been able to decide if he's good at, or he likes, or he doesn't like, or implement to his game or not. That it's never been put on his plate where he can consume it any way he wants to. And and now it's his 9th year in, and he's still learning new things he's never heard before. And I'm not talking about like changing a technique, like, okay, it's a rip like this, but if you angle your arm this way, it's a little easier. Like, maybe that's not why I made a new technique. The way he made it sound was like what? Like, I've never thought of. I don't know what it is. He didn't expound on it. Thanks, reporters. So no one asked him about it. I don't know what it is, but I was just kind of like, oh, that kind of sucks for him, because these guys are getting paid a lot of money to coach. They should always be trying. They should always be trying to learn, trying see the next new trend, the next new hot thing, the next new wave of things that other people are doing as defensive line coaches, and bring it back to camp and give it and implement it out. And it just sounded like he just didn't have had a lot of that. And then we'll go ahead and end this with, hey, Gerald's turning over a new leaf. What? Gerald McCoy turning over a new leaf? Training camp? That's a shock. I am flabbergasted. Gerald McCoy is reinventing himself during training camp for another Buccaneers season. This one's not quite as definitely not as sad as last year. If you remember last year, he came up to the podium, it's like someone shot his dog. He was just, I need to do this and I need to do that. And you're going to see a new player. And of course, every year we don't. It's the same Gerald McCoy, but the same Gerald McCoy is a Pro Bowler. So what are you complaining about? But he's going to try not to be so snarky or sarcastic during his interviews. He's trying to be more professional. So we'll see. We'll see. If you follow the team closely enough, you know that every Wednesday, I believe it's Wednesday, he holds court at his locker, in the locker room. There's like a short 20-minute period where the press is allowed in the locker room. The players know it. The guys don't want to talk to the press. They leave. They make sure they're not there. Some guys get caught there and they can still say, no, I don't want to talk to the press. But Gerald McCoy, he'll come in and people will walk around. He's like, give me a minute. I got to do a couple things. And, he'll, I don't know, send an email, make a phone call, read some fan mail, whatever he does. And then he goes, okay, I'm ready. And everyone runs over. So he has his own press conference every week in front of his locker every Wednesday. So we'll see how this kinder, gentler to the reporters, Gerald McCoy, pans out. Got another question here. McCoy keeps making us look soft with all the Batman stuff. I thought he was bringing the nasty back. Well, I don't mind that Gerald McCoy likes Batman. It does wear a little thin with me that he talks about it so much. I get, I don't have a problem with. I mean, Batman's not soft after all. I mean, let's face facts. Batman's not soft. But if you're saying like comic books are a little silly for a grown man to talk about, well, I've never been a comic book reader, but I'm not going to. But I have been heavily into video games pretty much my whole life, so those are childish things. I haven't put away my childish things. Joe McCoy hasn't put away his childish things, and I don't really think there's anything wrong with it. Bringing the nasty back, we'll see, man. That's why they went out and revamped the whole defensive line. I talked about all the new guys that came in. Mitch Unrein, I don't think I talked about, but of course he's there as well. And I think the Buccaneers fans have high hopes for this defensive line, and I do too. And I pretty much, to be honest with you, with the first 3 games and continuing through the whole season, especially these first 3 games, it doesn't really matter how Fitzpatrick plays. It's all going to be on the Buccaneers defense. Like if the defense shows up ready to play, we'll have a chance to win all those games with Fitzpatrick at quarterback. And as the big cliche, it starts up front. So it starts up with all these new guys that we brought in, It looks like the starting 4 is going to be Pierre-Paul, Bo Allen, McCoy, and Vinny Curry. 3 of those guys were on the team last year. So I'm a little cautious, I drank the Kool-Aid last year, so I'm not I definitely have to wait till I see him in pads, which I will Sunday. So the jury's out on that still. But I will say that that if the Buccaneers are going to have a season that the fans want or can be proud of or make the playoffs, even, that it's gonna be because of the defense, and that the defense, and because the defense is going to start from the defensive line. Video games are not childish, I know, but my girlfriend would disagree. Madden is a learning device. That's true. You know, this is a little bit off topic, and I'm going to go ahead and shut it down after this. But what is it? The show, I think the baseball one, the show, I believe it's called. The Houston Astros actually use those analytics, and they'll play like the team they're playing. They'll put in the pitcher, and they'll put in like the lineup they want, and they'll like simulate like 10 to 20 games, and then chart how the other team hits, how they were pitched, how they're so as you know, and also how their pitchers and how their batters were hot, because when you hook it up online, it updates like every single day. So if I'm playing the show and Jose Altuve goes down in real life, next time I put my game in and it's hooked up to the internet, it's gonna pull Jose Altuve out of my lineup because he's on the DL in real life. Now you can disable that, but it keeps up to the minute, and all the stats are like game to game, day to day in those games. So I can see what you mean by learning advice. I haven't played Madden in years. Like honestly, I haven't sat down and seriously played Madden since I think it was on a cartridge. Like I don't know if I've ever played Madden on a disc, like PlayStation or Xbox, or like I got out of it by then. But I was the best player on the East Coast. Madden 97. Just kidding. Madden 86. Was it 86? Madden 86 was good. That was good. All I do was throw Walter Payton on the wheel route. The games were like 75 to 72. All right, then. That's going to be it. Tomorrow, I'm going to work on inserting pictures and videos and audio clips, and maybe I'll get some intro music to start on there. But so that's it, man. This is my first dry run at YouTube Live. You're welcome. Yeah, I appreciate the thank yous, and think it's a good show. I appreciate all the numerous viewers that have come in and watch this. But of course, it'll be on the channel. And then after I sign off, I'm gonna have to try to figure out how to rip it and put it up on the Petercast podcast name. But until next time, you can find me on Twitter. That's the easiest way, at Rendaxt, REN_DAXT, or follow and talk to Brent, because he runs the Petercast Twitter account at the Petercast, just the way it's spelled, just the way it sounds. So until tomorrow, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thank you for subscribing. And I'll see you tomorrow. And I get to go to Bucks Camp on Wednesday. Full pads. It'll be fun. All right. See you soon.